Welcome, Mindsetters, to Learn Extra Live. We are now on grade 12 Life Science with Llewellyn. Welcome, Llewellyn. How are you?
Doing? Right in yourself?
Great, thank you.
Good.
What will we be doing today?
Human reproduction, just the end part of it this time.
Okay. Yeah, as you know, last week we did the beginning part.
Yes, the
Today
oogenesis.
we're doing the end part. So thank you for joining us if you have joined us since last week, because now you can attach the two parts together. It's going to be awesome, hey?
Perfect, definitely.
Awesome. You can go into the board while I tell you guys about the Facebook page. Remember, facebook.com/Learn Extra is where we're at, as well as our Twitter handle, which is @Learn Extra. I know you grade 12s are dying to hear what we have in store for you, and I'm also dying to hear from you too. So post in all your questions, all your queries. I know prelims are close, or I don't know, but let us know when your prelims are and tell us how you are planning to make it to after grade 12, I'm guessing. Hey, Llewellyn?
That's the only way to have it.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, good evening. Hopefully you're all ready, and I know it's a bit cold outside, so hopefully you got all your work in front of you and we're ready to go. Last week we did oogenesis. Now, what I was thinking was to start off with oogenesis, just a quick recap, because the rest of the part that I'm dealing with today actually starts with that piece. So let's just get there. If I go down, if I can find it, just want to get some extra space here. If I have a look at it, can you remember exactly how we started? This is how we did it. So try keep up with me and you'll be fine. Firstly, we had this thing called your hypothalamus. Okay, let's just put a HY. Your hypothalamus. Can you remember what that actually secretes? Okay, secretes GnRH, which is gonadotrophic hormone. Do you know where it sends it to? All the way to the pituitary gland. What does GnRH actually make the pituitary gland secrete? It's FSH. Anybody think of the name of that? FSH. Let's get rid of that. Looks terrible. You can see it's been a long day for me. FSH. What does FSH do? Okay, that's the first question. Second question, what does it stand for? Follicle stimulating hormone. That is secreted all the way to this big round ball that's in this area here. It's called your ovary for the ladies, right? So all the ladies' parts of this. Men, remember, we a bit simple. Well, this is woman, right? At the ovary, we need to stimulate a follicle from being made. What is the follicle called? It's called the Graafian follicle. So you get a small Graafian follicle, and as it grows, it starts secreting a certain hormone. What is that hormone called? Let me just make it bigger and bigger. It's called estrogen. What does the estrogen do? It sends a message to the pituitary gland to stop the production of FSH. And the more estrogen that is being produced, it makes the pituitary gland do something else. But firstly, estrogen goes and tells the pituitary gland to stop secreting FSH. And second of all, it sends a message to the uterus to start making an endometrium wall, which is a wall made of blood. Right, so let's make that piece there quickly. There we go. Okay, so it fills this piece up with some blood. Nice and easy, right? Then, when the estrogen becomes too much, the pituitary gland sends another hormone called LH. Sorry, I know it's all over the place, but this is just a quick recap, right? It sends LH, which is luteinizing hormone. The luteinizing hormone makes this Graafian follicle burst. So if I do that, let me just get rid of that piece so that you can actually see. It makes it burst and it releases the egg, right? And remember, the egg gets released and gets pulled in by the fimbriae, which are little fingers at the end of the fallopian tube, right? This Graafian follicle that's burst actually changes a name. Because it was luteinizing hormone that was produced, it now changes its name to the corpus luteum. Corpus luteum produces a hormone called progesterone. Progesterone tells this uterine wall to get nice and thick and meaty. Can you remember me saying nice and thick and meaty? Right? Makes it nice and thick and meaty so that we can actually have this egg go and end up in there and implant in there. Right? And as it's going further and further, you will notice that the corpus luteum gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And as it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, it stops making progesterone, or it makes a lot less progesterone. And if that happens, this wall starts breaking down. And of course, excuse me, of course, the women go through, they start menstruating. Okay, that is that whole process. Now, the nice thing about this is, right, that happens every single month for the girls, right? Every single month. What happens if fertilization takes place? Now, this is why I had to go through this again, just to remind you exactly what happens. So, let's have a look. Let's get to the slides here. There it is, sorry. There we go. Reproduction. Fertilization. Now, when do we say an egg is fertilized? An egg is fertilized when a sperm cell actually meets with the egg. Okay, when the nuclei of both cells meet together, of course, we get fertilization. Now, as you can see, I've put a nice picture there, right? Something that you can see under the microscope. I took a nice egg. You can see all the sperm cell fighting because only the best will get in. The one that gets it the quickest, the one that's the strongest, that one is going to enter. So that is fertilization. Nice picture. Hopefully you like it, right? It's not very difficult to get, but it's a stunning picture, and it's something that you can remember when you're in your exams. Next thing I did, the journey of fertilization. Okay, the term embryo is quite nice. As soon as the egg and the sperm meet each other, right, that when it fuses, from that point, right, we say that the egg is fertilized. As you can see, there's fertilization takes place as it meets. For the next 8 weeks, you get your pregnancy, right? You start becoming pregnant. So this is when the sperm has met the egg itself. Now, before I carry on, can you tell me where in this whole female system, where would the egg and the sperm meet? Please let Kat know, and we can find out how they go. So send in your answers. Let's see if you know this answer. Okay, now, as the egg and the sperm meet, right, the cell inside starts dividing. Okay, it starts going through that funny word. It's mitosis. Please don't get confused with meiosis. Meiosis is making of the sex cells. Mitosis is actually making new cells that are identical. Okay, so don't forget that. Don't get mixed up with the two words. Okay, sorry. As this goes through cell division, it makes new cells and new cells. So the first cell actually divides, making 2. The next 2 cells, they both go through division, making 4 cells. Okay. Now, as you can see, the dividing is called your cleavage. Okay. That's when it starts going together and starts coming together and starts dividing. Right. Now, this is the stage where twins are actually made. Okay. This is the most important stage. Now, not just twins, it has to be identical twins. Because when it comes to unidentical twins, it's 2 eggs and 2 sperm. Okay, 2 eggs, 2 sperm. It has to be that, otherwise they'll be identical. Okay, so just remember that. Okay, it takes about 24 hours to go to start making those 4 cells, and then it takes for every 22 hours, right? They double. So in other words, one cell is made from another cell every 22 hours, which is quite interesting. So almost every 24 hours, we're making a new cell. So it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. One day we're going to have a nice big baby, right? The newly formed cells travel all the way down the fallopian tubes. Well, this way down the fallopian tubes. Remember, I'm going nice and high because it's a bit belts in the way, right? So they keep going down and they start making the 4 cells. Now, what I've done is I've got a nice diagram here for you. Okay, as you can see, you've got your ovary over here. Just get a nice color here. You get the ovary over here. Remember, it bursts because of the Graafian follicle burst because of the luteinizing hormone. It bursts, and there it is. As the little sperm comes along and joins the egg over here, right? That one comes along, joins, and now you can see there's two nuclei in there. They fuse, and they become one, right? As they fuse and become one, they start multiplying. You can see they double, and they go into 4. There they all are, and they carry on and carry on and carry on. Right. They start becoming a blastocyst. Now, a blastocyst is very important, right? There's a step that I've missed here. I'm looking at the blastocyst because it's a completely different shape, right? When all these cells start becoming more and more, and they're all in a big ball of cells, right? That is called a morula. Now, that is just a big, big ball of cells. Nothing else, right? Big ball of cells, you get it going through, it's fertilized, starts dividing, goes through over and over again, and becomes a morula. Once the morula gets more and more cells, and the cells start differentiation. Do you know what differentiation means? Okay, let me just put it in a nice way. If I'm making another one of me and another one of me, so all of us are identical, right? And if we take it into the Olympics now at the moment, I do swimming, this person will go and do tennis, and I don't know if they do tennis in the Olympics.
Yes, they do.
Ah, perfect, thank you. So the tennis over there, and then you got the other guy doing hockey, right? So each one of us do different things. Now, I cannot play hockey, and I cannot do the tennis, but I can swim, and they can't do what I do. So that is differentiation. It was a cell, and they change their way they look and the type of function they do, right? As soon as that starts happening, then you start getting your blastocyst, which starts forming things like the amniotic sac and the baby itself and all those other nice little parts, right? Cool. Have I got an answer yet by any chance?
Not yet.
Not yet. Oh, come on. Let's bring it in. Wrong way. There we go. So,
Oh, wait, Llewellyn, we
Yes.
do have an answer.
Do we have an answer?
The fallopian tube.
very nice fallopian tube. Now, it happens in the fallopian tube because the egg cell of the female doesn't last very long. The sperm cells, however, can last for 3 to 4 days. So they last quite long. So watch it. It doesn't mean that if you've ovulated or you haven't ovulated yet, right, and the sperm comes inside, it doesn't mean that you can't fall pregnant 4 days later, right? So be careful, right? So the sperm lasts for about 3-4 days, right? The egg can goes very quickly. So it'll come down, let me just go back. It'll come down the fallopian tube, because remember, this is where the ovary is, as I said, and this will come all the way down here, and this will go across. Now you can see it's coming down. It'll get fertilized in this area here. Right, now, it can happen. It can happen that it gets fertilized in between here, just before it enters the fallopian tube. Okay? Now, if that happens, that means that the egg might be stuck here and is fertilized. Okay? If that happens, there's a special name for it. There's that one, okay? And there's another one. It means the same thing. This one here that I've told you here is very rare, okay? The other one that I'm going to tell you is if all of this happens, right? Now, in the fallopian tube, you get things called, if I mention this word to my boys at school, all they do is this, right? Which gets to me because they can't do this in an exam, right? It's the same movement that your esophagus does when the food goes down and things like that. Do you know what it is? I'll wait for that. So I'm going to wait for that movement. I want an answer for the movement, right? I want an answer for what this is called. And I'll remember this little piece here where the egg is. And if this movement doesn't happen, the egg is not going to move across. So it's going to get fertilized and it's going to stick itself here in this wall over here. And the egg is going to stay there and grow there. Now, that's a big problem. Right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask what the name of this is, if it gets stuck there or there, right? And I want to know the name of the movement of what the fallopian tube does to get the egg across. Okay, remember this movement. Okay, very simple. Next. What I've done is I've put the first bit of stages on onto the slide. Okay, so the minute that it's kicked out of the ovary or that the Graafian follicle bursts and the egg is released, it goes into the fallopian tube. It's not day 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is just the different steps. Okay, so the first step that happens, it gets released. As you can see, I've made it nice and big there, so you can actually see it go in. And it gets joined by sperm. Here are the sperm cells joining in, right? Now, the nice thing, or the amazing thing that gets to me, and my boys keep asking me this, right? The first sperm gets in there, and the minute it gets in there, that egg creates like a hard layer. It stops the rest of the sperm coming in, because it doesn't need it anymore. It needs one, right? Now, if one gets in, we're happy. Now, my boys ask, but sir, what happens if there's a tie? Now, I'm sorry, Kat.
Of course, boys would ask that.
Boys always ask that. What happens if it's a tie? Because to me, it's all about sport, and we need to get there, and it's a tie. Now, if you watched last night the swimming, right, it was not a tie. It was very close, okay? Couple of splits of a second, right? That was not a tie. So there will always not be a tie. One will get there first. And if two, by some miracle, get in, it's not going to work. The egg's actually going to die. Okay? You do not want so many chromosomes, because we've learned about chromosomes, I'm sure you have. We don't want so many chromosomes inside this egg. So it's not going to live. But all the time, one gets in, forms a nice hard shell around it, and it starts. So all these other ones can swim and do what they want, but they're going to die out. Plain and simple.
They have to go back home.
Back home. No, they can't go back
They
home.
can't go back home.
Kat, have you got any answers there for me?
Well, not yet, but let's go to an ad break just so that they can simmer through the questions and then
Perfect.
answer during the ad break. So you guys know exactly what to do during the break. Answer the question so that Llewellyn can approve it during this break. See you afterwards.